finally got some upsets, as they say, in the Club World Cup. I don't know. You guys might have been asleep for that late game. I wasn't, and I was stunned. But welcome to episode 7, VAR and Espresso. Leo, Daniel, and Sean. Did you guys happen to stay up for it?
Sadly not. No. You, Leo?
No.
Of course not. It was 2 a.m. for me, 3 a.m. for you. We're not sadists.
I watched some highlights and some minutes of the game this morning, but at 3 a.m. it's too late for me.
But I will say how fun Group A and Group E are now because of it.
Yeah.
I think these two might be the best groups as regards to narrative and things on the line for the final fixtures.
I think too.
I mean, look, PSG. Here's the news: PSG lost. Listen, they lost to the South American champions. So I don't know if it's the massive upset that everyone is speaking about, because Botafogo is a very good team. Well, PSG is supposedly the best team in the world at this point. Huge result for them. The stunning game, the maybe the best game of the day was Inter Miami and Porto. Look, that match was it was basically 2 games. If you watch the game, the first half and the second half, as soon as the second half started, Inter Miami scored, and it was a great second half. And once again, I posted out Palmeiras beat Ali. There was another weather delay, and Atletico Madrid beat Seattle in a game that wasn't great. I posted out that if you're complaining about this tournament, you're not watching it. If you are complaining about all the other stuff around it or whatever, people are like, I'm not watching this. But the matches have been fantastic. So where do you want to start, guys?
Well, let's start at the end, shall we? Let's start with PSG Botafogo, because that was the big upset. Like you say, Botafogo being the CONMEBOL champions, the winners of the Copa Libertadores, it's not so much a huge upset because they are officially the best team in South America. And of course, it's not that long ago that I've forgotten the name of the competition, but where the winner of the UEFA competition played the winner of CONMEBOL, and that got
Continental Cup.
But Intercontinental was all of them, whereas specifically this was I forgot the name of it, but it was discontinued in the 80s or 90s. So it's not as if it's complete. I think why it's so out of the blue are first of all, financial. Obviously, PSG, one of the richest clubs in the world. So it's not so much like the title of winner of UEFA plays winner of CONMEBOL. It's more that like the vast wealth of PSG versus the far more limited resources of any Brazilian club, quite frankly. But also, we only said yesterday that PSG should be favourites because they are one of the few teams. We haven't seen Bayern Munich hit at full capacity yet, but only a handful of teams have showed their full array of potential of how they play. And PSG in their first game did that. That's why it's they look fit, they look sharp, they look ready. I actually said at the end of the show yesterday, and I was not referring to this match, but I was saying it would be interesting, say in the quarterfinals when PSG come across a bigger team, say like another European club, would they be able to maintain their press throughout the entire match? Would they get tired? But what we saw yesterday was a team completely nullifying the press, making it completely irrelevant. PSG had nearly 75% possession, and yet only managed 2 shots on target in the whole game. This is the PSG of old, before they turned things around in January. Completely missing the target, missing opportunities. And actually, I should point out, of those 2 shots on target, the first shot on target was in the first minute. So that means basically 90 minutes of a match, PSG got 1 shot on target.
Yeah.
That is bad.
We have some comments.
Sorry, I'm not taking anything away from Botafogo. They played the perfect game against PSG.
We have some comments from the one goal. What are your thoughts on who will be the Club World Cup finalists? He puts this logo. I don't know what that is. says hi. He says TA was shit. What do you think about that? So 5 comments here from the one goal. Yeah, look, we could kind of go through that after we get through these games here. But thanks for watching. I don't know. PSG, maybe I thought maybe it was going to be one of them. Atletico Madrid, won 3-1. They scored. It was 2-0, and it was 1-0 at halftime, and then they scored right after the half.
Yeah.
They gave up a goal, and then they scored right after that. Once again, I'm not sure they played their best game. Botafogo cooked. That is correct. I'm not sure they played their best game, but that's all they had to do to win.
But by the way, I think that Igor Jesus' goal against PSG illustrates perfectly what we have seen since the start of the tournament with South American teams. Because at the origin of his goal, there is the midfield battled for the ball. And we have seen since now 2 much days that South Americans were very physical, and it kind of upset European team who are not playing their mid-season by now. So that's why it was interesting. But for me, it was a surprise that Botafogo beat PSG. As we said yesterday, and since the start of the competition, they are clear favorites to win because of what they have shown, and also because of what other teams have shown. But now it's being a good thing for them to be beaten, because if they advance in the round of 16, which I think they will, in quarter-final they can play against Bayern, and in semi-final they can play against Manchester City if anything goes in the good way. So it will be interesting, because if they had won against Botafogo, their way to the final were very clear, and it was not very harsh for them. So now it's interesting. And I have to note that now 4 of the 8 groups are dominated by South American teams. So it says something about the competition and the quality of their teams.
Yeah, and also it goes back to something we said in the early episodes about the fact that South American teams are only halfway through their season and playing this competition, and Europeans have played a long season already, and at the end of it, would that make a difference? I think personally, my opinion is that I think when we get to the quarterfinal stage, European teams will have woken up, will have found their rhythm again, and therefore be more dominant. I really hope, because the worry was only sort of one South American team would get to the quarterfinals. I think because of these upsets, there might now be 2, considering the pathway makes it slightly more interesting, slightly more doable. But yeah, I think by the quarterfinal stage, we'll probably see again like the re-emergence of like, oh yeah, that's right, the physicality. So not necessarily from like the snapping into tackles from South America, but like the stamina, the fitness. Yeah, I think it will come eventually. But for now, it's really fun watching South American teams sort of put their foot in. Actually, it was quite an apt expression.
And if you look at the PSG starting lineup, you can notice that there were a lot of changes from Luis Enrique also. But it was, as we said yesterday, kind of it was not only a sporting game; it was an ego game. I can say if you hear John Textor's thought after the game, if you see his players' reaction at the end of the game, it was kind of personal here.
Do you guys think perhaps PSG were complacent? I mean, we knew they were going to make changes because it's a long tournament, it's a hot tournament.
Yeah.
There's going to be a rotation, and to be fair, PSG have the squad. Putting on Hernandez for Menge as left back, that's not a downgrade as such. Still a quality left back. But correct me, Leo. Maulu, he's a winger, isn't he?
Yeah.
So he was played as part of the midfield three, and I was just wondering, that. I think that shows the complacency, the assumption of dominance, and therefore putting another winger and actually having less security midfield. And we saw that with the goal. The fact that actually it's basically Vitinha by himself. Zaire Emery had sort of wandered off as well, trying to be creative and attacking, and yet somehow we only had one player in the midfield. So I'm a Newcastle United fan, and this made me think about when PSG played Newcastle United in Newcastle, and PSG played this ultra-attacking 4-2-4 lineup, and Newcastle won 4-1 because essentially there was no midfield for PSG. It seemed complacent.
Yeah, and even Desiree Doué has been quite strange yesterday, because I think it's better on the left wing or as a 8 or 10. Yesterday he was playing on the right wing, and he was straight to the line, and I don't think it's his best position. So
that's part of the problem, isn't it? Him and Barcola basically have the same position, and actually it's quite, and so does Kvaratskhelia.
Yeah. So Luis Enrique did some choices. It didn't pay yesterday, but it's not the reason why we should say, "Oh, this is a disaster for PSG" or anything.
But again, take it away. Botafogo played it perfectly. They shut them down. They allowed them no space in the penalty area. They gave them shooting opportunities from a long way away. And to be fair, they only had 2 or 3 forays forward, and the goal was a deflection. So really, realistically, it should have been a draw. But you know what? It happens. You sort of play this defensive line. You take your one chance. It can happen.
As Textor said at the end of the game, Botafogo played like an English team. In my opinion.
Actually, that's pretty apt, like an old-fashioned English team. Back to the wall, break. So but Botafogo. It's wonderful to see.
Yeah.
I guess we'll go to the other game that maybe I don't even know if it was an upset or not, but Inter Miami beat Porto 2-1, and listen, Porto, the first half looked like they were going to win this contest very easily, and then second half, light switch turned on. Inter scored right away, right after the halftime intermission, which I think is always big when you're trailing a game like this. Any game, Premier League, Ligue 1, whatever it is. If you're trailing and then all of a sudden you score right after the half, and you're just, you're tied up, or you make it 2-1, whatever it is. It's like the whole game switches. The other team gets a little nervous, and then from that point on, Inter Miami played really well, and obviously the genius Messi scores on a free kick, and people are saying maybe it shouldn't even have been a foul. Messi fouled the other guy, whatever it is. It was a goal. So and as soon as he got the free kick, I said, yeah, this is going in, because he had just missed one right before that from a little bit further out and a little bit further to the left. What did you think about the performance of both teams, because Porto has been very disappointing in this tournament?
Well, I mean, I think you said it there, Sean. We thought Porto were going to win easily. They should have won easily. They got an early lead through a penalty. Again, looking at the stats now, I think the interesting thing is actually possession-wise, they were both almost 50-50. But Porto had 14 shots to Inter Miami 6. But they only managed 3 shots on target from 14. So, Porto created more chances. They created the better chances. They created better opportunities, and then it sort of fell apart in the last minute. At about 10 minutes left to go, there was a cross from the right, comes into the box. The left winger comes in, and his touch is too heavy and allows the keeper to recover. So there was plenty of those sorts of opportunities, not necessarily shots on target, but they had created opportunities. But then it fell apart. Porto should have won this game. And also, yes, I would agree. 1 goal down, coming out for the second half into Miami. Clearly, that was from the manager saying go, and it shook Porto. For that sort of 10-15 minute period after half-time, Inter Miami were slightly dominant, and that showed with them getting the goal, and then obviously another set piece from Messi, brilliant free kick. But then after that, it was all Porto again. Porto managed that game so poorly.
Yep.
It's they've only got themselves to blame. But again, you've got to credit Inter Miami. They reacted, and they did enough to get a lead, and then they did enough to keep the lead.
Yeah.
It's almost like knockout football already, the way it's been played. That sort of logic of not necessarily playing the whole game, but playing the moments. This is why, again, being English, I can say like Gareth Southgate, not so much a tactical genius by any stretch of the imagination, but it was big moments. It was choosing the players standing up in certain moments, and sort of playing the situation as opposed to the tactic, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think Inter Miami did that great, and Porto did not.
Yeah, but we can also say that there was a turning point in that game with Falcon's save at 1-0. If Porto had scored its second goal, I don't think Inter Miami would have turned the game in their favor. And moreover, I want to say something that is Segovia's goal reminds me of perfect Jordi Alba, Lionel Messi connection at Barcelona. It strikes me just when I saw it. It's interesting because they are both at Inter Miami, so we can think that they maybe have given some advices to their players alongside Mascherano, who is also their coach. So it's kind of a Barcelona bubble. And now, if we can just speak about Lionel Messi, I just think I don't really have words to describe how good he is, because he will be 38 next week, and he still is the main man of his teams. I said teams because it's also the case in Argentina. So it's incredible. Yesterday he scored his 68th free kick in career. He's, I think, 8th or 9th away from Juninho, with the leading free kick scorer of all time, and he's now the only player to have contributed to 1,250 goals. So I don't think we really realize what he's doing, what he has done since now 15 almost 20 years. And we can I think we are lucky to have seen this player from his start to the end of his career, because we have seen him change, because 2007 Messi is not the same as today, as it was not the same as when he was 25, when he was 30. I don't have really words to describe this player, because he's the greatest, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. But then that's also elite intelligence. It's not just sort of elite ability. It's that mentality.
Yeah.
It's also kind of astonishing watching, because obviously he's lost a yard or so of pace, but the ball control makes it look like he's quicker than he is. There used to be this thing on a certain soccer-based computer game where if you played with Messi, he'd run faster with the ball than without.
It's incredible.
Yeah, but it does look like that in real life. It's the fact that he can also. It's also the use of strength. He's not very tall, but like the ability to just shift his body weight to block from defenders and move the ball away. And watching him in the start of the second half for a good sort of 20 minutes, he was dictating everything, and Porto could do nothing. It was magical again.
SSB, welcome. No, it's an upset, but it's not as big of an upset as people think. And football is a pyramid where top managers, players, and clubs are, but then it expands as you go down. Bodo would be a mid-table club in top 5 leagues. It's just a different.
Yeah,
style.
that's fair. Sorry, that's fair with regards to like wage. Their wage is similar to, I think I wrote about this in the previews. The Botafogo's wage budget is what you would find in, say, like the lowest part of the English Premier League. I believe their wage is slightly higher than Brentford. So, like, but you know, if we ever saw Brentford beat PSG, we would be shocked. So I think that's more the comparison. It's not so much the prestige of the club, because obviously the reputation of Botafogo is huge because of getting it like recent success. They are the champions of South America, but it's more to the financial comparison.
It sets up a interesting match day 3 for that group. Porto plays Al Ahly, and Inter plays Palmeiras, who are both obviously on 4 points.
Well, can we switch and then talk about the Palmeiras Al Ahly game before we talk about the ramifications of the group?
Yeah.
Because actually, there's a theme here, because you mentioned about Inter Miami coming out of the blocks for the second half. Palmeiras, right? So the first half, Al Ahly were fairly in control. They probably should have scored, but they were the dominant team. And at half-time, there were 2 changes made. Off went Rafael Veiga and Vitor Roca, who didn't seem to really get into the game.
No.
But it was Maurizio was brought on, and Lopez, and that changed everything. Suddenly, Palmeiras, when they went forward, they had control in the number 10 slot. They had a striker peeling off the centre-backs. And to be fair, the first goal is a freak of nature because it's an own goal from near the edge of the penalty box. And actually, in the whole game, Palmeiras had 11 shots and only 1 on target, yet 2 goals, which is one of those things. But the second goal was fantastic.
Yeah.
The fact it's played from the right back into, I think it was Maurizio. So the 2 substitutes linking up. Maurizio controlling it in the centre circle, being able to turn away from the guy marking him, delaying the pass as well, not taking that extra beat, allowing Lopez to get in the right position and playing the perfect ball and just evading a challenge as well. Like it was inches away from an intercept. And then Lopez is free. And then the finish is brilliant. The composure, allowing the keeper to come out before sliding it to his right and off the post. It was a fantastic counter-attack goal. But again, it was made from 2 substitutions. So like the proactivity of the manager at halftime, even though they weren't losing, they weren't in the game to sort of taking control of the situation. Like we need more in the middle, we need more up front. And it worked perfectly. And then after that, Al Ahly, even though they had more possession after that, they really didn't create anything. Yeah. I think their next shot on target was like the 85th minute. It was, brilliant second half performance from Palmeiras.
It's interesting too, because I think that match changed a little bit on that. When the red card was rescinded. You could see I immediately went to my betting app and was actually going to put a bet in, and then you looked at it and you're like, man, it's, let me see first. I don't know if that's a red card, and it's just like Palmeiras was like breathed a sigh of relief. They're like, listen, all right, we're still in this, especially in that weather. It was brutal here yesterday.
Do you think it was a red card?
No, I think it was. I didn't even think his foot was that high. I mean, I guess it's a little bit the same as the one where he kicked him in the face. I think the other day, it has to be a red because he kicks him in the face. But if the guy's face was there instead of his foot, it probably would have stayed a red card. But his foot really wasn't that high, and he kind of hit his foot with his studs. So I guess he said, listen, it's not a red card. But it's not that much different than the one from the day before where he kicked him in the face, other than the fact that he kicked him in the face and the foot. So, it's just this gray area, I think.
Leo, do you think it was a red?
Yeah, I think it's a gray area. It's not a scandal that he was not awarded a red card, but in my opinion, even if the impact of the fault wasn't very impressive. It was not kind of a big shock. It was pretty dangerous because it wasn't controlled. His foot was, I think, too high for a tackle like that. So if the ref had given him a red card, I wouldn't have think it's a scandal.
So I got 2 points about this. First of all, there is context, right? So I was saying with the Rico Lewis red card, where the context was his foot. He made the good tackle, and his foot deflected off the other player's foot into his face. So I didn't think it was a red card because actually he was perfectly in control. It's just his foot deflected, and much like a handball being deflected onto your arm, like you can't give that. But also you do see why the referee gave it. Much like that, the context is important because his foot was fairly high, but the defending player, his foot was off the ground, right? So it was foot-on-foot contact, about, I don't know, nearly a foot off the ground. But the thing is, if the defender's foot was on the floor, that means that the tackle would go into the upper part of his shin. That could break his leg. So the context of like, well, actually, it is a dangerous tackle and it is a high foot. The only reason it's not a red card is because the other player, his foot wasn't on the ground. That shouldn't come into consideration. It's not about that. It's about whether the guy making the tackle is in control and if his foot's high and if it's dangerous. It was all of those things. I think it should have been a red card, actually. But again, sort of, I understand why the referee did it. The second point I'd make, part of the reason why a lot of people in England hate VAR is kind of, there's an inevitability about it, right? So say the referee makes a decision. If he sent to the monitor, there's been a study done about more than 95% of the time, if the referee sent to the monitor, he'll then change his decision. So therefore, it's a thing of VAR re-refereeing games. There's almost like this unspoken rule that if VAR send you, you then change your mind. But the referee's already made up his mind. So like, had it been a red card, I don't think people would have complained. Had he not given it as a red card, then actually it's a similar thing, like the grey area. But the fact to turn it over on VAR, there's not evidence to suggest that it wasn't a red card. It's a grey area. So stick to your original decision. So what it has been is like VAR has sent him to the screen and he's sort of been pressured into changing his mind when there's not enough evidence to change his mind. Whatever his first decision was, my point should be, it should stay his decision because there's no new evidence. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. But I think it was in the vein of the game because 30 fouls were whistled during that game. It was very physical, and it was a game with a lot of. We have seen South American teams play like that against PSG for Botafogo yesterday, for example. They want to. They're vicious, kind of vicious. I like this kind of play. It's not the problem, but yeah, yesterday was a really physical game.
Yeah, I agree. And you're right, it is the theme, isn't it? Some teams, well, it looks like no teams have been able to deal with South American physicality, that snapping into the tackle, the disruption in midfield, So that leaves Group A. In first place is Palmeiras, 4 points. +2 goal difference. Second is Inter Miami on 4 points with a +1 goal difference, and they play each other next. That's correct, right?
Yeah.
And Porto are third with 1. Al Ahly is last with 1, and they play each other. So I'll be honest. So like with Palmeiras and Inter Miami, a draw kind of suits both of them. I know you'll want to win the group, but also that it's kind of like getting through to the next round is a huge achievement. More for Inter Miami. I think Palmeiras were always the second favorite for this group.
I personally put them first.
Ahead of Porto.
Yeah.
I think the refs will tighten the whistle during the knockout stages. I think probably that will happen as well.
Although, I'm going to say I would partly argue against that because we've also seen that referees, even subconsciously, play on the safe side quite often when it comes to decisions because they know VAR is there, right? Yeah. So it's a similar idea with linesmen not flagging for offside until the play's finished and then doing it. It's sort of letting things play out just in case. Similar with referees. I think they're less likely to give a straight red because they know VAR will tell them if they've made a mistake. Even if it's subconscious, there's just that little, like a few percentage change of likelihood.
I think that red card too. I mean, if you remember back to the game, probably not even 90 seconds before that, he had a really bad tackle on somebody else. It wasn't bad, but it was a tough tackle on somebody else, and Anthony Taylor kind of was like, "All right, this game." It was still early in the game, and it was starting to get a little bit. The tackles were coming in, and I know he didn't want to pull the card out, and then 90 seconds later, he has this tackle, and he's like, "You know what, red card." Like, it was like almost like, man, I should have given him a yellow for the. If you give me yellow for the first one, he probably doesn't put the second tackle in or whatever. But I just had mentioned, I just saw that right when it was happening, and that was just something that I thought. And then the other match yesterday, Atletico Madrid and Seattle, it was at 6:00 Eastern window, so 11 and 12 o'clock over where you are. So I don't know if you had a chance to watch it. It was. I mean, look, Atletico Madrid should win the game. I don't think, once again, I don't think they played like, great, but all of a sudden now, because of that, they're in with a chance, and they can, really, there's two teams, PSG and Atletico Madrid, on both on 3 points. Botafogo's on 6, Seattle's on 0. So I think that was a huge win for them, and they're going to have a chance to, affect the group on match day 3. But he's going to accept an Alton player or something like this. Yeah, I agree. What what were your thoughts on that game before we moved to today's schedule?
It was. Do you want to go first, actually, Leo?
Okay. We quickly saw that Atletico had something to prove during this game from the first minute. Their first 10 minutes were just an attack defense game. They scored rapidly, quickly. It was, and they could have scored more if Alexander Sorloth were less clumsy yesterday. He had, I think, 4 or 5 chances to find the back of the net, and he didn't succeed. But yeah, moreover, we can talk about Barrios, which had a top tier performance, and not only his goals, because in my opinion, he's a player very mature for his age. Okay, it's 22, but he's still young. He knows how to control the tempo of a game. He can carry balls. He can cross it. He can pass it from a long range. He can do a lot of things. And I really like this kind of those profile of midfielders. He's kind of a box-to-box midfielder, and yeah, he's really good. And if I can just say something about Seattle, even if they have lost their second game in a row, they weren't ridiculous. They were combative, but I think the lack of just individual talents, notably on a defensive aspect, and it's against a big team like Atletico, it's quite difficult to answer.
Yeah, it's a shame as well because Seattle were never in the match. Obviously, like Atletico scored in the 11th minute, and then it stayed like that for a while. Witsel scored. Llorente's shot, oh my goodness, like the one that led to the second goal in the 47th minute. Llorente's shot from 30 yards that the keeper did brilliantly to palm onto the crossbar, but then obviously it was great reactions from Lenormand to react and put it across to Witsel.
Can you try it again?
Man. Anyway, so obviously Atletico had a second goal. Then Seattle scored a few minutes later. Very, very exciting. They're in the game again, and 5 minutes later, Atletico have a third. So we're talking about 10 minutes at the start of the match, 5 minutes in the second half. They're the only times Seattle had a real sniff of opportunity. And to be fair, they did themselves proud. They managed to get 16 shots against Atletico. They've not been embarrassed in this tournament. They've done themselves absolutely fine.
Yeah.
It's just there is that just the jump up of quality that it's always going to be difficult for Seattle. And now, of course, I mean, they're not quite eliminated, but they do need to beat PSG by 3 goals, their standard chance. So they're probably out. I think in the comments, I saw people saying that Atletico not having quite enough quality. Someone said they think of them as a quarterfinal team. I think most people would agree. There is some real there are some quality players in there. I mean, Alvarez has become one of the best strikers around.
Yeah.
He is so good. His movement is fantastic, and they have the ability to beat anybody. It's not quite the complete package. But that brings us to the end of Group B, in which, as Sean already said, Botafogo on 6 points, PSG on 3, but with superior goal difference. Atletico with 3, but with a negative goal difference, and Seattle with 0. Now, Atletico play Botafogo next. What I really don't want to happen is Atletico, if they win by 2 goals, I think they then jump above Botafogo because of more goals scored. Head-to-head doesn't come into this competition. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah.
So Atletico, actually, when you say it like that, Atletico just need to win by 2 goals, and they are into the next round. So they will sniff, they will smell blood, they will smell the opportunity. But Botafogo, if they get a draw, they've won the group, which would be incredible. Obviously, PSG big favourites to still go through because they have the best goal difference still out of the group, and they're playing Seattle last. So you would assume PSG would be too much and go through still. But Botafogo, a draw, losing by 1 goal, Botafogo through the next round. Such an opportunity. Do you think they can do it?
I think, as SSB 28 said, it's going to be a war between 2 teams. For Botafogo, qualification to the next round is also a question of money, because I think it's 7 or 8 million euros to go to the round of 16. So it will be really, really interesting.
We're talking about Botafogo beat PSG playing exactly how Atletico used to play in Simeone's like the prime Atletico team, playing sort of like this compact defensive football and breaking and making it nasty and slow. That might be Atletico's undoing in the next game if Botafogo can do that to them.
Yeah.
So Pedro, how's it going?
Hi, Pedro.
Talk about Benfica versus Auckland City and some of the games on Friday. Welcome, early match. What do you think? 10-0 here, 11-0. What do you got here?
First of all, good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to join the show. Let me tell you that yesterday we almost swept the board. We gave here Palmeiras, we gave here Inter Miami, we have here Athletic took over. Also, my best bet on the NBA was one that easily cash. I post in the last 5 years. I post my best play in the NBA on X, totally free. So it was really a good day with our games analysis. We have been in a ether last show. For Benfica game, I'm talking in the better perspective always. I don't like so much that Inter Miami game where I was betting myself. But I saw 2 interesting plays. One play is Auckland to score. If Auckland score a goal, the audit was around 250. Only this. And it's interesting. And the other play is if Auckland can resist 50 minutes. If they resist 50 minutes, so it's a draw in the first 50 minutes, it's a typical -110 Weger. It deserves a shot if you believe that Auckland can resist 15 minutes or score a goal. In my opinion, there's the 2 most interesting plays. The line is 6 goals. So Benfica took over needs to score to win by a margin of 7. I really don't like this inflated lines. Doesn't make sense for me. I don't know. I really don't know what happened. What I wish is Benfica to go through. So I hope Bayern make the job done against Boca. It's my expectation as a fan, as Portuguese. So I tell for me, the most interesting thing for me is to see if Auckland can score a goal. That's it, guys.
SSB, I don't see Auckland scoring their Sunday league. Even the worst ranked team in England in the whole federation higher. It's at 9-5 meet. This team is legit 9-5 meet, and we could probably. You're saying we could beat them? I don't know, man. I guess you put me in goal. Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough game for the early. I guess they put it in that early window. It's a tough match. I mean, it's going to be, pretty. I think the other games during the day are clearly more exciting than this. But I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that game or just want to move to the next one.
Yeah, the only.
Sorry, you go. No, please.
Okay,
please.
the only thing I can say is that I don't think the question is will Benfica beat Auckland, is how many goals they are going to score. It's the main interest of this game for the first place in the group.
Because it's going to be about Benfica and Boca, and Bayern. We don't know Bayern are going to win the group for definite. But yeah, so like playing for that goal difference, it's a case of for Boca and Benfica, how many can you score against Auckland, and how few can you concede against Bayern? And that'll do it. That'll make the decision. I would say, not that I entirely believe me, but like I love an optimism, right? I spent too much of my life being cynical, so a bit of optimism about Auckland. Of all the teams in Group C, I think Benfica are the ones they could score against. I think Benfica and Boca know about trying to get as many goals as possible, which would leave them not necessarily vulnerable for counter-attack, but you never know if one little mistake, one little you commit too many players forward. Auckland, believe it or not, they did. I mean, they created a chance against Bayern Munich, and a pretty decent one. I think the XG was like 0.2, which, I mean, if you know anything about XG, in a single shot, that's pretty good. And of course, Auckland had to wait for 70-odd minutes. They conceded 6 goals by that point. And yet, they had one counter-attack, and they got a shot at target. Had that dribbled in, that would have been a goal. Like anything could happen. I think Benfica, my feeling is Auckland could score against Benfica, more so than Boca, more so than Bayern. So my prediction is 5-1 Benfica.
I think SSB here with the point where they shouldn't have gotten the NFL stadiums for some of these games. I think FIFA sees this more as a dry run for next year's World Cup, and they want to test out how these things are going to work in stadiums. Obviously Lincoln Financial Field is hosting games.
Yeah.
In Miami is hosting games. Atlanta is hosting games. MetLife is hosting games. Seattle is hosting games. So I think it's more of a dry run for that. I don't. I can't imagine they thought they were going to sell a lot of tickets for LAFC and Tunis at 6 o'clock, or Flamengo and Chelsea at 2 o'clock. It's a weird time, by the way, 2 o'clock instead of 3 o'clock. So I think that kind of goes into it. That's
just to add something about on SSB's comment. As we said in the first show with Shen, is that before major competition as a World Cup, countries often organize another event to test their abilities, to see how people react to everything.
Hosting, travel, transport, all this stuff.
If you take the example of Qatar 2022, they organized the Asian Cup a few months earlier, and it was also empty stadiums, but it was the occasion for them to test their new stadiums, even if it was big and empty.
Well, it's not a new thing. Obviously, before Qatar, there was the Confederations Cup, right? That which was played every 4 years. The year before the World Cup, which, if those of you don't know, it would be the winners of every single like UEFA, CONMEBOL, CONCACAF,
Confederation,
all the internationals, as well as the host country, and that'd be it. So you'd only have 8 teams. It'd be and quite often they were very interesting tournaments. I seem to remember Chile won it in 2017, I think, before the Russia World Cup. So that's been around for a while. So there's always, for a long time, there have been these warm-up tournaments the year before, within 12 months of the main event. So yeah, I understand this point, and I completely agree, because I mean, I think there was I read in a BBC article that just over 50% of the tickets for the entire tournament so far have been sold, which is obviously quite poor when you consider a lot of these. A lot of that was like Real Madrid sold out the stadium and things like that. But it's inevitable. But that's not the point. What you don't want, I think this is, was my main point. What we don't want to see is what happened when the Copa de America happened in the US last year, where there was chaos at the final. And now, to be fair, that was organised by CONMEBOL, not FIFA. But still, that's a warning sign of there was a major final, and it was horrific for the fans who were in searing heat. There were not riots as such, but it was dangerous. So yeah, much rather this when it's half empty stadiums and everybody's safe and everyone's safe next year than what happened last year.
Yeah, that's true.
Now the 2 Group D matches that are big: Flamengo, Chelsea, LAFC, Tunis, 2:00 and 6:00. Both matches important in their own rights. Flamengo and Chelsea, the 2 teams that won their first match. LAFC and Tunis, the 2 teams that lost their first match. One of those teams, possibly, or both, if they get a draw, could stay alive, depending on how the result goes in the other one. Which of these 2 is more interesting?
I think Flamengo and Chelsea. Partly because whoever wins it will probably win the group. And so yes, if you finish top of this group, you play the runner-up of the group, who has Bayern Munich, Benfica, and Boca Juniors. So obviously, there's one team you want to avoid. So winning this group, if Flamengo can win this against Chelsea, or get a point, because they actually are ahead still on goal difference, I think, then if they can manage to win the group, they avoid Bayern Munich in the next round, which makes it more likely than getting to the quarterfinals. And same thing with Chelsea. What you don't want to do is if you lose this, you lose control of the group, and you may well be facing Bayern in the next round, which might be too much at this early stage.
Chelsea are interesting to me. Delap impressed me. We talked about this early shows. How he's watching for new signings. I agree. We talked about how some of these new signings were going to be integrated into teams. He was interesting in that first game. Chelsea did just enough to win. They kind of expended, save some energy and stuff like that. I think they're going to have to probably raise it up a little bit of more of a level here to if they want to win this game comfortably. But yeah, that is an interesting game. I expect Chelsea to win. I think they're one of the favorites for this tournament, but if you watch Chelsea play last year, sometimes they would just, they just wouldn't show up. Some of their players I just think aren't good enough to be playing at that high level, but that's just me. The other game, Tunis and LAFC, which is going to be in Nashville, we talked about that a little bit. Obviously LAFC, I don't think people thought we're going to be here. Now they're here. They're playing Tunis. So, talk about 2,000 people at the Sundowns game watching in a thunderstorm. There's going to be something like that probably for that match once LAFC doesn't travel as well. And Tunis, they're going to have their fans. So it's going to be probably majority Tunis fans making all the noise. But, could be an interesting game because, LAFC didn't play poorly in that first game, and Tunis was just I just probably outclassed, but maybe they think, hey, listen, this is our chance to win a match here.
Yeah. Actually, I think one of us said it yesterday or the day before about LAFC Tunis. If you want any chance going into the final game, you need a win here. A draw does basically nothing for either team. So the hope is that then that'll make sure they push themselves forward. It's unlike a game where you, as opposed to being a game you don't want to lose and you play defensively, it's a game you need to win. So hopefully it'll be an interesting match and a progressive match and an attacking match. Because they both need it. This is their big opportunity to keep their tournament going.
And I think talking about Flamengo versus Chelsea, that Flamengo can create surprise against Chelsea because it will be, I think, an attacking game also. We have to say that Flamengo hasn't lost single games since 9 games. They're undefeated in their last 9 games. So it's interesting. And moreover, from what we have seen from South American teams so far, it wouldn't be a real surprise to see them beat Chelsea, whose game against LAFC were correct, but not quite brilliant.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, someone mentioned in the comments about Atletico Madrid feeling like a quarterfinal team. That's how I describe Chelsea.
Yeah.
They're not quite back at the elite level. I'm actually looking at my notes from the previous Flamengo game, and I just remembered that they have Luis Araujo, he's a fantastic player.
Yeah.
He's the real danger. And Chelsea are vulnerable. They don't tend to control matches that much.
Yeah.
There is the option of Araujo or someone like that with like good technical ability being able to just find the right pass, and Chelsea are a team that could suffer for it.
SSB, to be fair, Tennessee has some California imports that could come to watch. Look, Nashville's a great city. Once again, I mean, if you're a fan going there, to go there instead of Philadelphia would be like night and day. I say that as a Philadelphia person. Chelsea, young team, a good South American team can beat them based on experience and grit. That's an interesting point. Pedro, any thoughts on those 2 matches?
Yes, I was thinking that I agree with Leo. I see, in my opinion, the odd is not right in favor. In Chelsea, the odd it's not right considering the possibilities. So I really believe that Flamengo can score. I really believe in both teams to score. Yes, it's the best option for this match, and that's my pleasure of this place. It's the both teams to score in the Flamengo Chelsea game. The odd is good enough for not believing that Flamengo can score in this match.
And then obviously the late game is Boca.
Go ahead, Sean.
The late game is Boca and Bayern. Interesting. Again, Boca, I think, let the 3 points slip away there late, against a 10-man Benfica. So they need to win. Benfica is going to win that game, so they're going to be on 4 points. Boca has to play Auckland City after that. So, they're going to win that. So, Boca, I think here, if they can get a result, anything, a draw, could be, the difference them going through or not. I think it's going to be tough because, Bayern is, once again, one of the strongest teams in the tournament. We'll interested to see how they'll play, not against Auckland City. So, the late game tonight, very, very intriguing in its own right.
Yeah, it will be quite interesting because we will see what if Bayern can be considered as a serious contender for the final title, because we have seen them play against Auckland, scored 10 goals. Okay, it was good, but it was just logical considering the difference between those 2 teams. So now they have a real adversity against one of the best team in South America, with a lot of support, which can count. So it will be a good opportunity to judge Bayern's level at this stage of the competition, I think.
Going back quickly to obviously, because one of the great things about this tournament so far has been how good South American teams have been. I'm just updating. I was just using that time to update my the planner, the wall chart I've got going. If hypothetically, if Group A and B stayed as they are now, that would mean that in the round of 16, Palmeiras would play PSG, and the winner of that game would play Chelsea or probably Bayern. Again, like if things stayed the same, which would be incredible because obviously then you've lost 2 out of 3 huge teams before the quarterfinal. But in the bottom half of the draw, you've then got Botafogo versus Inter Miami in a round of 16. So one of those teams would be in the quarterfinal, and they would play Flamengo and probably one of Boca Juniors or Benfica. So again, one of those teams would be in the quarterfinal. So as opposed to at the start of the tournament where actually it looked like the quarterfinals would be 7 European teams and 1 South American team, now there's a real prospect of the quarterfinals having a completely different look. And it just makes the tournament way more interesting. We want different continental teams in deep into the tournament. What we don't want is UEFA dominating it, and that's exactly what we've got so far.
Yeah.
All right. Any last words today on anything, Pedro? You're going to be. I know you're going to be getting ready to handicap the basketball on Sunday, and all the matches today, and then another good day tomorrow as well. What do you got? What do you got going over there in Lisbon today?
What I'm following is tomorrow the under 21 playoffs. Of course,
Yeah.
I want to follow the Portugal game and the Spain game. Looking forward for my national team to go through. And of course, guys, I will post my NBA best bet on Sunday. Just follow me on X and check the play. And if you like, just cash the ticket. I have been good all the season, around 60%. In the finals, I'm 4 wins, 2 losses, so it's 66%. It's a good result. So follow me there. Follow me there on the NBA. I also post for another sport, but the NBA it's my core. Considering the sports and the capping is where I'm more strong. I have more tickets cash, and people knows me for that. But I also, as you see, I also can talk about other sports, as soccer or football. I don't know how you say, because, for example, in Europe we say football. We don't use the expression soccer. Soccer now. This is in the United States and Canada. We use football. I don't know how to say here soccer or football.
You say football. It's fine.
Okay. So wish to the audience and to you, my guys, a very nice day. It was a pleasure to be here. Take care.
SSB.
Thanks.
I know SSB's in US somewhere. I gotta find out where you're at. Maybe we get you on the show one time.
Because we've had a couple of things on the chat quickly about Bayern Munich. Well, someone's saying, like, do you think Kane bounces back because he looks a bit uninterested? I would say, like, it's probably a bit unfair to judge him to say he looked uninterested against Auckland. But also, I think this might be one of the reasons why Bayern could go deep in the tournament, because unlike other teams, they don't rely on pace. They rely on a lot of good technique and short passing and clever passing. So I think actually this kind of like the humidity might suit them better than other teams, because they're not about the running in behind. They're about clever passing patterns and crossing, and they've got a world-class striker, which does the world good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Kane does, quote, bounce back. I think it's shocking when he goes more than 3 games without scoring. That's the quality of the guy.
SSB, you email me there at that email, and we'll get you on the show there. We'll get you talking about soccer. I mean, Leo, you excited for today?
Yeah, because it will be another good day of football, especially Bayern against Boca Junior. and Flamingo Chelsea are the two games I'm gonna watch. So yeah,
after the whole word saga, I think Bayern might have something to prove. Yeah, I think we talked in the first show. I believe Bayern's probably maybe one of the big favorites. Obviously one of the big favorites, but it changes all the time here. But I think Bayern probably goes pretty deep into this tournament when you see the other teams.
Interesting they talk about Wirtz though, because obviously big clubs, there's something of an ego or a reputation about signings, and it's very rare that players say no to them. I know that Bayern have also been looking at Nico Williams, and so essentially Nico Williams has agreed, I think, personal terms with Barcelona, but the final two clubs that could buy Williams were Barcelona and Munich. So if Bayern were to lose out on Wirtz and Williams, it's quite a shun. It's quite an image for Bayern not to attract the best players. So perhaps they will want to prove a point.
And they could lose also Bradley Barcola, because I read that they were interested in him, but I don't think PSG will let him go. But
Liverpool signed Kirkes today as well, so Liverpool's definitely strengthening. What's that?
40 million, I think it was.
Yeah.
And his replacement has already been bought by Bournemouth in Adrien Truffert. He was playing in Stade Rennais last season.
Yes. All right, so we will see you again tomorrow morning. We'll talk a little bit about all the games today and all the matches tomorrow, and make sure you tune in again, and we will see you on the other side.
Thank you very much.
Peace.
Merci. Obrigado.
Obrigado.